Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the BYOB website Thesis 2.0 launch party. It has been a really exciting week for me here this week. I've had the incomparable pleasure of working with the thesis development team and testing Thesis 2.0 and in working on getting it ready for today's launch. And as we sit here yet this morning at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, Thesis 2 has not yet been released to the public, but we do have an alpha version, and I have permission from Chris Pearson to demonstrate this alpha version. So sit back and enjoy. It's going to be a blast. This is really an exciting time for Thesis users and Thesis developers. So having said that, let's just jump right into this. I have a demonstration site called the Barking Chihuahua Cafe. Actually, it's thesis2demo.com. But as we walk through this system and customize the site, we're going to be customizing this thesis2demo.com. That's going to end up looking like a cafe website. But before I do this, I just want to give you a little bit of introductory information. Thesis 2 gives you the opportunity to create different templates for everything. So you can have different custom templates for different pages. You can have different templates for different categories or tags or custom taxonomies or custom post types. You can have one page template style for your home page, another page for your static front page, another for your single posts. And if you've got some specific single post that you want to have a different style for, you can choose to do that quite easily. It will allow you to create different templates for absolutely everything. It also will allow you to create as many widget areas as you like and place them wherever you want. Now, this is the death knell for a bunch of my plugins, right? This Thesis 2 actually makes most of my Thesis plugins obsolete, because most of my plugins have to do with arranging widget areas or sidebars in different places on your site. Well, Thesis 2.0 completely revolutionizes this, and you can put as many sidebars as you want virtually anywhere on your site. You can also have as many menus as you want, and you can place them anywhere on your site, and you can have different styles for different menus, and you can have different menus on different templates. So if you're a person recently said, well, I want to have different styles for different categories on my site, and I want to have one category have one kind of menu, another category of stuff have another kind of menu, and I want these all to be different colors, that is slam dunk in Thesis 2. And what that really means is that there are absolutely no HTML limitations in Thesis 2.0. You know, this is probably the most, or I guess the most obvious example of this is in those cases where you may want to put a full width slider. You've seen those sliders that go from the edge of your page to the edge of your page, and the page content is, you know, still page width, but you've got this really cool slider that goes from edge of page to edge of page. Thesis 2.0 accommodates that no problem. You can have stuff that spans the full width of the page. You could have some stuff that sits on the left, some stuff that sits on the right, some stuff that sits in the middle. There is no HTML limitation, no structural limitation on the HTML. In fact, you can have columns that are unlimited width, right, that are completely off the screen that you have to scroll through to get to and that kind of stuff. There's really nothing that you can imagine in HTML that you cannot do with Thesis 2.0. And you're also not going to be doing this, or let me rephrase that, you're also going to be doing this without writing very much code. In fact, the majority of the code questions that I answer today, both on DIY themes forums and on my forum, will simply not have code answers in Thesis 2. That is, you can do almost everything that people talk about wanting to do. Almost any customization that people want to do, you can do without writing code. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be opportunity for you to write code. There will be opportunity. Especially if you're a web designer or a web developer and you want to do something that's really outside of the ordinary. There's still the opportunity to write code, and there's still the mechanism for doing it. But believe me, 90% of the things that people want to do on a website that requires either a plugin or code is going to require neither once you get your hands on Thesis 2. And this means you're going to be learning a lot more HTML and a lot less PHP. You know, I've found here that my members often have a better understanding of PHP than they do of HTML, because HTML has always been handled automatically for you in WordPress. And so you really didn't do very much HTML, but if you wanted to customize something, you'd need to know PHP. Well, Thesis 2 turns this upside down. And it doesn't require you to actually write the HTML, but it will require you to learn something about HTML and understand the structure of HTML and the way HTML elements go together, which, frankly, you can learn all the HTML you need to learn in probably about an hour. And you aren't going to really need to know PHP unless you're doing something that's very advanced. The same thing is actually true for CSS. There's probably more opportunity for you to write some CSS, but most of the CSS that gets written is going to be done simply by selecting options, and those options generate CSS. So you'll need to understand the concepts that underlie the CSS, but you aren't going to need to remember the syntax or know the syntax specifically. Because whether it's HTML or CSS, Thesis is going to actually write the code for you. And what you'll do is drag and drop things around and check boxes and that kind of stuff. And it requires a certain understanding of the broad concepts of CSS and HTML, but is not going to require you to focus much attention on the syntax. The result of this is really, web designers, you are going to love Thesis 2.0. It is going to be so much easier for you to do all the spectacular things you wanted to do but couldn't because you were hemmed in by one thing or another. You know, I have coaching customers who will no longer need to hire me for coaching because they don't need to do all the kinds of things that they hire me to help them with, because Thesis 2 just makes it so much simpler for you to do all that. By and large, if you can imagine what you want to do, then you can accomplish it simply by dragging things around and setting up some configurations, as long as you understand what the end result is that you're going to want to accomplish. It's absolutely remarkable. I can tell you that, you know, in this last year, as I've been watching Chris's announcements, and I've been thinking that Chris might, you know, be a bit hyperbolic, that it might not be as cool as he says it's going to be, but I can tell you from having played with the alpha version of it this week that every bit as remarkable as he suggests it is, and it's completely different. It's completely different than anything we've ever done before. So